Dave Cooper Live, we connect the industry leaders in the architectural, engineering, and construction space with the people, the products, and the processes to help them build it better. The construction industry isn't just evolving, it's being re-engineered from the ground up. What if the future of construction wasn't just built on site, but engineered in labs, optimized in factories, and perfected with cutting-edge technology? Today on Dave Cooper Live, we're joined by Brandon Searle, Director of Innovation and Operations from the University of New Brunswick's Offsite Construction Research Center, a hub that's turning this vision into reality. With over 65 completed projects, 12 million in research funding, and a mission to accelerate innovation, the Research Lab is where industry meets academia to change how we build forever. But we can't do any or all of these conversations without our supporting members. So how about we give a big shout out to Cobalt Creed. They service builders, developers, prefab home builders, and manufacturers, allowing them to achieve the highest levels of comfort, indoor air quality, and low energy costs with their HVAC systems installed for their projects and their customers. Their approach is simple. By using their proprietary small duct, high velocity central heating and cooling system. If you want to learn more, go to cobaltcreed.com. All right, now a few words from these sponsors, and we're going to get right to the show with Brandon. Brought to you by Greatech, developers of the complete light gauge steel and wood framing software for Revit StruxSoft. Offsite, modular, or prefabricated, StruxSoft Framer turns Revit into a powerful manufacturing tool, automating every step of the DFMA process from design to final delivery. StruxSoft doesn't just work with Revit, it transforms it. Jumpstart your designs at StruxSoftSolutions.com. Halleck Ltd. has a long history of innovation in cold form steel manufacturing and producing innovative precision roll forming technology for customers throughout the United States and the world. Check out their machine buyer's guide for off-site modular construction or fast build construction with light steel for framing. Go to their website, halleckltd.com. All right, a big thank you and shout out to all the supporting members and all of our supporting members that you see going across the ticker right there below on your screen. If you want to be a supporting member and you want to support the information that we are putting out there, the education we are giving you each and every week to include today's conversation, we'd love to have your support so we can learn and keep building it better for a better built world. All right, without further ado, let's bring Brandon onto the show. Brandon, how are you, sir?
Good. Thanks, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Where are you located in the world today, Brandon?
So today I'm in Fredericton, New Brunswick, up in Canada. So it's about I usually tell people it's about a 12-hour drive east of Toronto. So we border with the state of Maine.
With the state of Maine. And you guys are going through a heat wave, right?
We are going through a heat wave. There's a few forest fires. There's a lot of stuff going on out there. But yeah, I'm happy to be inside. And I definitely don't envy some of those workers that are out on the construction site right now. Maybe I will tell you, in a factory.
the words Canada and heat wave just don't seem to go together.
Yeah, it's wild. Yeah, it's been hot in the last couple or month or so. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, listen, I hope you guys work through it. And I hope we get a hold of those wildfires. Sustainability and resilience are something that we're talking about a lot. And we have to really take in consideration global warming and these things that are happening as we're building new projects. But I'm sure we're going to touch on some of that stuff in your presentation. But before we get into it, Brandon, we want to know everything about you. From the moment you were born to this very moment in time, do not leave out any of the good stuff from the hospital, or we will have your family members on, and I'm sure it'll get embarrassing for you. However, you only got about a minute and a half. The floor is yours.
Yeah, no, thanks, Dave. Yeah, so I grew up in Moncton, New Brunswick. It's about 2 hours away from here. Grew up, around the construction industry, had grandfathers, and my dad working in the trades, road building, in all forms, doing the modular construction back in the 70s and 80s. HVAC technician was my dad, so been around that. Played a lot of sports, obviously being up here, played a lot of hockey. And then, as I got older, I started thinking about what I wanted to do, and I was getting in a bit of trouble. My math teacher said, "Stop screwing around. You're pretty good at this stuff. You should try engineering." Went on to the University of New Brunswick, took a degree in civil engineering, went on in a master's, so bachelor's and master's in civil engineering, focused in construction. Then went out working for a consultant firm. I worked for a contractor, worked for a municipality for a bit, a few different things. And then, in 2018, UNB announced the Offsite Construction Research Center, and the opportunity came up to be hired as the innovation director. So threw my name in the hat. Didn't think much of it at the time. I was fairly early in my career and still learning. And one thing led to another, and here I am. So been with the research center pretty much since the beginning. And I just continued to grow in my career, continue to be involved in sports, play a lot of golf, and now building a family and just down the road from where I grew up.
Well, love that. And congratulations on building the family. So how many kids do you have kids?
I do. I have 2 daughters, 5 and almost 2. Yeah.
Oh, love it. I also have 3 kids, and all of them play hockey. My girls are actually playing at a very competitive rate. They were ranked number 3 in the country and Canada, their team last year. They lost in the quarterfinals.
Wow. No, that's awesome. And that's in Pennsylvania, is it? Or?
Yep. Based out of Pittsburgh, but we lately it seems like we're playing all over the country and in Canada, but that's for another conversation. We're here to talk about construction, man. So listen, let's hop into it. I know you have a presentation that we're going to go through. What is the biggest thing you want people to get out of what we're going to talk about today? And then we're going to jump into it.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, like when our research center got started, the whole backbone of it is this whole model, a triple helix model of innovation. And what the idea is, you bring industry, academia, and government together to move a sector forward. And, in construction, there's been a lot of stats that show that like the investment in R&D is small relative to other sectors. The way we measure productivity and innovation in this sector, we haven't seen the jump that other sectors have. I have disagreements with how it gets measured, and I think we are much more innovative than what the stats show. That said, there's more opportunity for research and development and collaboration. And so really, I hope, out of today, and it varies country to country in terms of the different R&D programs that exist. I know US is different than Canada and so on. But I hope out of today that, many industry folks will be looking to their peers in the R&D community to collaborate and move things forward. And I think that's how we'll really drive innovation and ultimately increase productivity in our sector, hopefully.
Love it. Love it. Let's hop into the presentation. I'm going to put it on the screen here so we can get to it. So the floor is yours, man. You have control.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. Thanks, Dave. So yeah, I guess when we showed this presentation, we essentially wanted to give a bit of background about the research center, about UNB. I might go a slide or two back here, just a little bit about UNB in general. So University of New Brunswick, it's Canada's oldest English-speaking university, founded in 1785, and was home to the first engineering and computer science program. And since then, has grown quite a bit. Has a very entrepreneurial focus. We have a few campuses now, and several research institutes, and many startups that have come out of the university. So I kind of alluded to this in my intro, but in 2018, the Research Center was established, the OCRC, as I'll refer to it quite a bit. It's a bit of a mouthful, but it's what we have. So essentially what had happened was there's a company, OSCO Construction Group, and I think it was something like 89% of their professional service employees were UNB graduates. And so they came to UNB and they were like, we want to do something collaboratively that is going to move this industry forward. And so they started by, as our founding partner, they donated $2 million. Half of that went to creating the OSCO chair and offsite construction. And the second half went to the creation of the research center and the innovation director position to run it. And so we were officially established by May of 2019 as an official center. And it's really focused on that triple helix model of innovation. One thing that's unique about our research centers compared to a lot of the ones at academic institutions, at least in Canada, is we have an executive board. And when OSCO, that kind of gives us advisory, advice on what should be priority, what's happening in industry across the country or around the world. And when OSCO created the center, they said they wanted at least 50% of that board to be from the private sector. And that's different because many other of our peer centers would be other professors or people on campus who sit on that board. What ended up happening is, as we evolved, we now have 14 board members, which is getting quite large, but 12 of the 14 are all from the private sector. And they're representing everyone that's in the traditional kind of construction supply chain. So right from private development to public owners and operators, modular manufacturers, panelized manufacturers, the GCs, the precasters, the mass timber manufacturers, et cetera. And so, and that's really guided where we've gone in our strategy and our mission of accelerating construction innovation through the improvement and adoption of OSC technologies and practices, and a vision to be a hub for research, innovation, and collaboration. So that's a bit about our center. And in 2022, after we kind of formalized our board, we went through the typical strategic plan. Let's understand our values, our pillars, all that stuff. And there's kind of four main themes that we wanted to highlight is industry relevance. So, Dave, you talk to people all over the world, and there's a perception a lot of times, particularly at universities, that what's being done might not be relevant for industry. And that's really what we have to focus on. So almost all our projects have an industry partner, and they can be a micro level project where we're going in, doing time studies, collecting data, offering insights on where their bottlenecks are, how to improve, but then also using that data to understand, to run simulations, to trial new software, to different things like that. So everything is really industry driven. Then at a macro level, particularly in Canada, there's a lot of discussion around the housing crisis and policy and regulatory reform that needs to happen to really unlock housing and unlock the prefab and offsite sector. And so we do a lot that's really all industry driven. Collaboration, I touched on excellence and integrity. So despite, if we have a funder funding a project, we say right up from the onset, we are a research institution. We have to remain unbiased, and the result might not benefit your organization or your product, but that's what we have to go behind. Obviously, we're confined by confidentiality and NDAs and whatnot, but yeah, that's the other piece with the center.
You guys are just like Dave Cooper Live. We are unbiased. We just put the information out there, and then people can make their own decisions. So I love that. And I think that's the only way really to get true advancement is, by being open and honest with the industry and what you're finding and what the research is showing us. So I love that. Do you have a lot of interaction with the government? I know we got a lot to get through, but we talked a little bit before the show. Like it is everybody's dream in the offsite industry to get the government behind better ways of doing codes and approvals and so on and so forth for offsite construction. Are they invested? Either with their minds and their resources, or are they interested in what you're doing?
Yeah, they are for sure, and it's really picked up. So we had a federal election in the spring of this year, and the Mark Carney got elected as prime minister, and he promised $26 billion for prefab housing, and it's going to run through a new entity called Build Canada Homes. But even before that, we had a lot of support from the federal and provincial governments, and not only like our province, but the provinces kind of across the country. And so a few things, they recognize the important, whether it's housing, healthcare, education, etc. There's a need to build more. There's a major labor constraint. So Buildforce Canada produces a labor market index report, and I think they highlighted in the next 10 years, it's just over 30% of the construction industry, the skilled workforce, is going to retire. So we have to rethink how we build. And I think the government recognizes that. Now in the last 4 or 5 months, there's been more of a push on it, given the new mandate from our new prime minister and so on. But yeah, through that, we've been engaged with the government. So one of the things they did through the National Research Council of Canada, there was the NRC platform to decarbonize the construction industry at scale is what the research program is called. And a big portion of that went into prefabrication and offsite construction to increase productivity. And so we wrote a national roadmap on identified 22 initiatives that industry, government, and academia can undertake to really unlock the opportunity for the sector. And since then, that was published in June. And since then, we've seen a lot of buy-in and a lot of people saying, okay, how can we action some of these initiatives? So the support has definitely been there. And I think the industry is gearing up to respond to what's coming in the fall.
What I love about what you guys are doing is you're just not academia that are putting their brains to it. I mean, you have 65 projects, right? That you've already completed, and I'm sure there's plenty more in the works. I mean, you have a lot of funding behind you. I'm sure it goes quickly when you're doing research and innovation things, but you're not only researching it in real world projects, but you're also, practitioners of the real world projects. And I think that's a big difference between normal academia and boots on the ground, actually having to take a set of plans and, oh, well, it looked good on paper, but that's what happens, right?
Yeah, no, it's 100%. I mean, that even can happen in it. So I said in my intro, I came from a family of folks in trades and say the traditional blue collar work. And I was the first one to go to university. So I heard everything about, those engineers don't know what they're doing. They're drawing this. It's never going to work on the job site. So, and it extends, sometimes even worsens in academia if you don't have that boots on the ground and don't get those real world insights from, the people on the factory floor or the people installing the module or whatever it might be, the crane operator, et cetera. So yeah, that's a big part of what we do. And I didn't mention this at the beginning, but another thing that's unique is, and I think you were going to ask, you might ask about the students aspects later, but one thing that our center has, and we now have 12 staff. Most research centers at academic institutions, it's professors who also teach, run the research program, and then they have postdocs, PhD students, master students, and occasional undergrads doing co-op. We realized that there was a major demand for what we do at almost a practitioner level. And so, and to meet the needs of industry, we can't necessarily have a student that, priority 1 is getting the degree, priority 2 is helping that industry partner, and then they graduate in 2 years. So we needed that constant researcher involved in a project for continuity throughout. And that's a model that we've adopted and I think is a bit unique, at least to our peer research centers in Canada too. Yeah.
Well, love it. I know we got a lot to get through here, so I'll let you get to it.
Yeah, no. So, I mean, just talking a bit about, I highlighted our governance. You highlighted, so this number is obviously changing. And I guess when I talk about our research, when we say company support, it's a lot of people would call them clients or customers. A lot of times it's partners, and a lot of what they do, we have different ways that they work with us, either through like a fee for service, but there's a lot of programs that the federal and provincial governments put out for R&D that, like, an industry dollar can be matched with $1, $2, or $3 more and be extended. And then there's also tax credits associated with that. So this number is constantly changing and growing, but we've in 5.5 or just over 6 years now, I guess, of completed close to 70 projects. And a big one we have on the go right now is actually with the Canadian provinces. So the 4 provinces in Atlantic Canada we've been approved a project from the federal government is funding it to write an Atlantic Canadian offsite housing innovation strategy, essentially. So that's the big one that we have on the go right now. And I can dive into that a bit, but I guess before doing that, I want to touch on some of our research areas and expertise. So these kind of themes of research kind of happened organically, and it's all around like common things of process and productivity improvement. So how do we increase productivity, safety for the workers, and quality of the products? We do that using simulation optimization, helping with factory layout and design for manufacturing assembly. We then use digital technology to enable a lot of that stuff. How can we move more activities traditionally on-site to off-site for the many benefits that we all know? We're getting into more structural testing. So, I mean, connections are always a hot topic. The structural connection, mechanical, electrical, plumbing. So we're into that, and more building enclosure testing. So, we talked about, I mentioned the fires happening in Canada and across the country, and more so on the East Coast right now. But the hurricane-like winds that we get in the rainfalls and things that aren't common. So we have to think about how we build differently. What are these new products that we could maybe import from other countries or start innovating and exporting out of here that will meet those codes? So we're getting into more of that. And the last one area we're focused on is benchmarking the state of the industry. And that helps drive policy change, regulatory change, potentially changes in building codes if we participate in that, procurement, contract, financing, insurance, and a lot of those things that I think if you surveyed the modular offsite construction sector, they would say these are some of the major barriers, and that's a big highlight of what we do. So beyond that, the other thing we're working on, and this became so if you go to most universities, they'll have 2 priority services. They do education and they teach, and they do research. And being a research center, our lane is doing the research. That said, what became very evident over the last 5 or 6 years is there isn't what's being taught with architects and engineers doesn't necessarily teach them what is needed for offsite construction. So the blend of manufacturing and construction engineering and management. So in 2022, 2023-ish, the province gave us some support to develop an advanced methods of construction diploma. And we're launching this in 2026. And what we're really doing, and this is in collaboration with the Faculty of Engineering at UNB, but what we're really doing is bringing that industrial engineering thinking, that manufacturing type thinking, and construction engineering management into the classroom, and welcoming target audiences, existing folks in industry, and we're offering it in a way that's going to meet their schedule, their demanding work schedule, and so on, but also offering it to recent new grads or folks in their final year. And what we're doing is really blending, as I said, construction engineering management and manufacturing through all these courses. So that's another big piece that we're doing now. And I can dive into more of the projects, but I know we have a lot to get through. So
yeah. Well, I just want to comment on that here. So here's what we've seen over 3,000 interviews traveling the world, that most academia universities that are teaching architectural design, project management, the students, when they come out, are really almost 3 to 5 years behind what's really happening with technology in the field, where you're actually using the cutting edge technology and training these students, right, in the project management side and others, what's currently happening. And I think that's a big deal, because, if I'm looking to go to school as a student, I want to go and learn the latest, and greatest of what's happening out there, not be 5 years behind when I come out and have to catch up.
Yeah, 100%. And, I think there's some parts of the world that are a bit more advanced in this. And the theory, especially if you're going to do a bachelor's degree, that, like, at least at UMB, if you do a bachelor's in civil engineering, there's so many aspects. It's not construction engineering management is like one of many. So you almost have to you can specialize in your last year, but that's not enough time to really get caught up. And so they teach problem solving and being able to work across like transportation or geotechnical or hydro or whatever, structural, so on. But what you said is right. And the other thing that we're doing and through this is collaborating with those software and hardware providers to be, sometimes I think there's a perception that, they're trying to sell all the time and we got to keep them out of the classroom. But at the end of the day, a lot of those product providers, whether it's software, hardware, new materials, etc., they are innovating daily. And we did a survey once, and it was like, where do you get your innovation information from? And a lot of industry folks said they're suppliers. They go to trade shows, which that's where I've seen you at trade shows, interviewing the folks on the floor. And so I think collaborating with them is key, and they're doing very innovative things, and they're at the forefront of it because, their customers are using their technology daily, and then going back to them and say, it'd be nice if you could do X, Y, or Z. So we should be collaborating. One of your sponsors there, Gray Tech, we were just talking to them earlier this week and around this program and this kind of stuff as well. So yeah, I agree 100%. And that's something we're trying to be mindful of as we grow. Yeah.
Yeah, Great Tech's been a long time supporter too, but they're what they're doing is amazing. Their software is amazing. Their staff is amazing. So can't say enough about them, and that's not a kiss up, just because they support us. It's reality.
Yeah, no, for sure. And yeah, so I mean, we were at a conference in Quebec a couple of weeks ago, and had a colleague had a good meeting with them, and there's one thing I didn't mention this in the beginning, but one thing that's kind of unique is, so New Brunswick is a province of less than 1 million people. I think we're kissing up on 900,000, so relatively small. Right. But we have quite a mature prefab industry, whether it's the volumetric modular, the wooden panels, steel fab, even we're getting into like bathroom and kitchen pods and things like that are typically being shipped to central Canada. And a lot of those businesses, aren't as familiar because we aren't an urban center. Those larger software and hardware companies, they're based in the larger urban centers. So they're not as familiar with these products. So through our collaboration, we're able to bring our industry partners, bring some of that innovative thinking that's happening in California, in Toronto, in wherever it might be, and bring that to the region. So that's another key piece to it for sure.
Love it. Let you get back into it here.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, so just diving into the projects a little bit. So I don't want to go over all of them. I could take up more than an hour doing that, but one project. So this is an extension of the engineering building at UNB, and we did a study kind of understanding how BIM impacted quality, productivity, et cetera, on the project. And this was the first project using mass timber for an institutional project in Atlantic, or in New Brunswick anyways. And so we had a student paired up with the company, the general contractor, the construction manager on there was Ellis Dawn. The mass timber came from northern Quebec, and then using a lot of the BIM technology and actually applying her research to understand what did and didn't work well, and then feed that back to the owner, who in this case was UMB Capital Planning, to say, here are some opportunities for improvement for future projects. So that's some stuff we do. Other stuff around process and productivity improvement was just around simulation. So this was an energy, make sure that's running. It's a relatively small simulation. We've done these in many more complex industrial type projects, but essentially this was a company that does energy storage. So they can store energy for 8 hours, for anywhere between 8 hours and 8 days. And what they asked us to help with is understanding how modular should they go? What are the restraints or the constraints of the local supply chain? What are transportation and logistics constraints? And what's the trade-offs of using if they modularize some of that facility, and then using different cranes and the size of the cranes and how many and so on. And so we're able to do all that and give them insights. Essentially, data-driven decision-making is what we're doing, and visualizing that using simulation. Right. So that's some aspects, and you can really apply that to the factory floor. Like I mentioned, the volumetric company, modular company. So we've worked with over 25 prefab companies in the country, all of which are a lot of them come and say, we want to double our productivity in the next 5 years. And said, yeah, everyone wants to double their productivity in the next 5 years. But, they're looking at, okay, what's the robotics? What's the extended reality technology that exists? What's the new software that exists? What CNCs exist? I know you had done an interview a bit ago with Lindbacks, and so they're quite advanced, and we've actually referred a lot of our industry partners to that interview, because we're like, go check out what Lindbacks and Helene has done, and before going to VBC, and then we can talk about, like, how far do you want to go and so on. Right. So we do a lot of that, and we do that through a lot of data-driven decision-making using these simulation tools at the beginning before they make that significant investment. One cool one that we're doing, so this is with one of our industry partners. They're a precast concrete factory. So what was happening, and this ties into the training and education piece a little bit, what they were experiencing is a lot of the new grads coming out weren't able to read the blueprints or drawings as efficiently as some of the older folks, but we're seeing a lot of retirements, and they need to fill those voids. And so, but at the same time, those new grads had grown up with a cell phone, with a Xbox, with a PlayStation, so they've been immersed in digital technology. So what we started looking into was with Trimble Connect for HoloLens. Mm-hmm. Taking the Trimble Connect product and converting the BIM model into a hologram, and then overlaying that model. In this one, this is a pilot here where my colleague Massa, she overlays the model into just like a test bed that she made, and then being able to do your QA/QC that way, where you actually see the model overlaid. So I'll see if I can speed that up, and the next video might be a bit better. But yeah, so there you can kind of see all the rebar and everything embedded there. And then you can turn on different aspects of it. And similarly, so this is where Massa was using it in the actual factory itself. So she goes along, you scan a QR code that then orientates where you are relative to the bed. And then she's able to, if I can speed it up, I get a little motion sickness, so maybe I should have had a warning there. But what I'm getting to is so she'll turn it on here, the rebar and stuff, and then you can overlay all the details into the actual model. And then so that would be, a lot of times that's a mirror image of what's going to get poured in the drawing. And so you think about, if that gets missed and the concrete cures, the amount of rework involved in that, and the amount of cost, the amount of waste of material, etc. So could we overlay all that green, red, everything you're seeing there? That's the hologram overlaid with that. So we were looking at doing that. Now the organization actually ended up buying their own licenses, buying their own technology, and they're using iPads instead of the wearable tech, I think that's mostly for safety, and you can use the iPads for other reasons. But yeah, so that's some of the stuff we're doing. We did a similar one with a steel fabricator. So that's some stuff what we're looking at using, like how do you increase efficiencies, increase quality, and enable the next generation to enter this workforce. And it can make this sector a bit more attractive, because some people, when they think of construction, they think about having to dive into a muddy trench or whatever that might be, or hop in an excavator, which I find fun, but not everyone does. But the folks who grow up with video games and stuff, they'll see their place in construction as well. So a couple other ones we're looking at was so this is creating a plugin for Revit for light gauge steel production. So this was essentially a plugin that some of our students and my colleagues developed some code to be able to automate where the steel studs go and everything like that. And then through that, they were able to also, that's supposed to be a video. I don't know if it's playing, but then they were working with one of the robotic companies and then using the robotic studio software to automate wall panel production. So this is just a simulation or a video of it running, obviously, but this is the idea where you'd actually have those walls built. I won't mention the robotic company, just they can come talk to you if they want to be mentioned on the show. But yeah, so that's some of the stuff we're doing. This is with in collaboration with University of British Columbia out west and some of their research partners there. So we're working on that as well.
Yeah. Hey, listen, information sharing is what we're all about, man. So it's never a problem mentioning names whatsoever. In fact, I was going to recommend somebody for you to look at. It's more on the critical infrastructure side. And actually, one of the guests here turned me on to him. It's called XYZ Reality. I'm sorry, what did I say? Reality. And I mean, it's for critical infrastructure. Same type of thing where the goggles have the lenses. But it's to a whole nother level. But it'd be good for you guys, for students to be learning their technology as they come out of school.
Yeah, no, yeah, for sure. And the more like that world is evolving so quickly. I mean, Trimble has their stuff and they're a big player. And, but there's so many startups that are coming out and at one point or another, they're going to get sucked in by one of the big companies, but it's great to see. And the hardware is changing and it's making, so some of the constraints that we're seeing, with the HoloLens and whatnot, now Apple's in the game, Google's getting more in the game, and we're going to see that used more. And like some research and some colleagues have looked at like how that wearable tech impacts safety, or like it leads to safety concerns on a job site.
Right.
And so I think one thing that they're trying to do and we're seeing is a lot of that stuff is just like, it won't be any different than wearing a pair of safety glasses down the road, right? Or your hard hat, and be integrated with that.
Not for nothing. The kids love wearing the meta goggles, right, at the house here. And you can actually set safety boundaries on that before you even start playing that game. So I could actually see it going to that level when you have a job site and there's a stair opening there, that there's safety, things that are there that warn you and let you know. And I'm sure that's built in, but continue.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah. And like I said, it's always evolving. And that's one area, like our team, I mentioned there's about 12, not including obviously the grad students and whatnot, but we're trying to keep tabs on a lot of the innovation happening, but it happens so quickly. So the more we see and the more we can get involved in, the better. And some of the ones we're working with now are looking at some of the robotics companies to do, they're using their robots for site layouts. So once your foundation's poured, laying out where everything's going to go. But we're talking to some precasters and they're saying, really it'd be nice if we could do that on the casting bed. So then they'd be able to see where everything goes and then have your QA QC done through an iPad or whatever. So we're exploring some of that with some of the robotics companies as well. But like I said, it's constantly changing and evolving, which is great to see. Just diving in a bit further here. So in our structures and building enclosure, so precast concrete connection. One thing, I mean, it's funny, like when we started in 2019, almost every organization we talked to said, building the factory so much faster, but then when you get to the job site, there's so much, there's such a big bottleneck connecting all the services, connecting your structures, the structural components, etc. Precast, a lot of these get welded, right? Mm-hmm. And if they're welded at height, that becomes safety concerns and so on. So we've been looking at connections and on volumetric modular, often wood. I mean, I'm in Eastern Canada in New Brunswick, so I'm surrounded by about 70% forest. Neighbor with Quebec, they have a ton of forest and so on. So a lot of lumber, a lot of really good skilled trades, carpentry and framers and things like that. But yeah, we're looking at connections and how we can improve that site component of connecting panels and modules together. And one thing, colleague of mine is Alan Lloyd. He's a professor here. He came up with a bolted connection, and in our lab we were able to actually do this and then do some testing. So the picture that's kind of shown on the left is not the best, but that's bringing 3 panels kind of together. We poured those in the lab, lifted those in place. We had some of our technicians, but also students get involved in actually doing the mixing, putting the connections together, installing the frame that's on the inside and the Z plates and everything like that, and actually getting a feel for what this actually entails, because they'll likely become structural engineers and designers in the future. And then we're able to do a lot of testing on how it's constructed, how it comes together on the job, etc. And then further to that, we took that a step further and we're able to look into seismic testing. And so we have in our labs a bunch of things to essentially pull or push at really high force and at different frequencies and understand the capacity. And then through finite element modeling or finite element analysis, do some testing around like what type of seismic forces these connections will be able to handle. So here's an example of another project where we did. So this is actually a really cool one. So up north, like in Nunavut territory, that's quite a ways north of like Ontario and whatnot. Just so the audience has a feel for it, they essentially you can only ship stuff up there in June and July, I believe, or July and August of the year, because there's no other way to get there because of the ice. And so they have a massive housing shortage. They're also experience minus 60 degrees Celsius weather up to 30 to 40 degrees, and there's not a ton of equipment, there's not a ton of labor, and there's not a ton of raw materials to actually build. So we were working with this housing company that was looking at essentially building precast concrete panels essentially in southern Canada, shipping those to 3 spoke factories in Nunavut territory, and then assembling them in those spoke factories. So you'd have your hub and south spokes up north, and then bringing those to the job site. So in a way, you're mitigating the cost of having the raw material shipped up there, bringing all those extra equipment, but you're also creating jobs by having the assembly done in a factory in the north and then installing on site. Couple of problems is cost of shipping is all tied to weight, and can the concrete handle the extreme weather conditions. So we worked with them to develop an ultra high performance concrete, which was able to withstand that in those environmental factors, but also is super thin, and obviously making it much cheaper to ship because of just being lightweight with lightweight aggregates and so on, to then make that make the economics make sense for them to build using and the other, a lot of people might say, well, why don't you just do it with lumber or potentially with steel? A lot of the tenants that were in these homes, because it is for public housing, a lot of it were, because of how cold it got, there were times where they were actually taking the studs out of the wall and using it as a heat source. Wow. So it was that was another perspective that like we don't traditionally have, but we gain that from our industry partners to understand like these are the different constraints that they face on their projects and with their housing stock, and how does that kind of feed into how we make decisions and the research that we do to make it actually applied. And that project has since completed. They have there might be patent pending on that design, but I know they're building more homes now, and they're probably looking at using this technology for it.
Imagine being so cold that you're willing to take the structure out of the walls of your house. It's helping you to stay warm and burn it. Like, I don't think the average person understands that.
Yeah, well, that and I think it's a culture. Like, there's definitely a cultural change too, because they might have not grew up in a structure like that,
right,
or have an appreciation for what that stud is doing in that wall.
Right.
But yeah, it's definitely unique. And I should mention there's actually a really cool case study. Bird Construction did the project. I think the modules, I believe they might have been from Stack Modular. So they did a hotel up in the territory there, and there's some cool case studies on that the audience would be able to check out. It was up in Iqaluit, which is IQUALUIT, I think. So the Iqaluit Hotel project, which, and again, like, if it wasn't for offsite construction, I don't know if like accommodations like that could have really been built in that region. And you think about, like, they had a conference there a couple months ago type of thing. So it's kind of cool. Next thing we're doing, and these aren't, there's some newer pictures, but this lab is new to us. It's our high performance building research lab. So we have this massive steel frame, and obviously a high bay area, and we can fasten panels, different building materials, windows, doors, etc. Even get modules in there to do testing, primarily around rain and wind. So cyclic hurricane testing, cyclic, rainfall, heavy rainfall, different things like that. And we're talking with some of one of the largest home, or maybe the largest home building company in the country. They're reopening their modular facility, which they went into that in the 90s, and they've announced that they're bringing it back. So that's Stemular, and Mattamy Homes is behind that. This all ties into a lot of the work with the precast concrete folks as well. One big thing that's happening, at least up here and potentially south, is the idea of total precast and the benefits of that. And so their whole idea is, how do we move more activities into the job site? And some of the precasters are starting to, and have been for a while, installing windows and doors and more services in the factory before it arrives on the job. But then that comes up with, like, unique connections between the building envelope and at the joints, and understanding the air and water leakage problems. And so we have ability to do testing on that in our lab. And luckily we have a red seal carpenter who used to install modules in his day job before he joined our lab as our lab manager. So it helps a lot. Yeah. And that's another piece, like his insights into, like, that we just wouldn't think about when you're installing modules on the job, because on paper it looks a lot easier than when things just don't line up. Right. It's always interesting as well. So yeah. I'm just looking at time. I want to make sure I'm mindful of that, but a couple other things we do, like, research is a big piece, education's a big piece, and it's all great, but if you're not broadcasting what you're doing, then what's the point of doing it? So like if people don't know what you're doing, how are they ever going to use it? So in 2022, kind of post COVID, so actually during COVID, we started webinars. They're for free. They're on our website. They're all free. People can go check them out, umb.ca/OCRC. So we started webinars. We hosted probably about 25 in 2020, 2021. And then in 2022, we went into an in-person event, and we hosted Transforming Constructions with Offsite Methods and Technologies. And we did that in 2022, 2024. We partnered with some of our peer universities in the UK, Sweden, Australia, New Zealand, etc. Invited them over. They presented some of the research they're doing, and we had a mix. I think it ended up being about 64% industry, 36% academia, and 64% government and industry. So bringing them all together. And then in 2024, what was really cool was the federal government through NGen Canada. So NGen Canada started the manufacturing hubs across the country. They had then been given funding from the feds to run a housing program, like an innovative housing program focused on prefab and offsite. And they actually came to our conference and announced that program there. And many of the industry folks there have been successful in getting and applying for that funding. And this is leading to more automation and robotics and things in their factories, and ultimately being able to build quicker and higher quality and hopefully safer for their staff. So yeah, that's some stuff just about how we kind of mobilize the knowledge and try to get it in the hands of practitioners. Obviously doing shows like yours or other podcasts and so on are other things we do, but these are just some snapshots of some of our webinar series. Now, I don't know. So this one here, that's Mark Farmer's team. I believe Mark was on your show. Yeah. So Cast Consultancy, they actually partnered with us they supported us or helped us a little bit with the national roadmap we did, because they had done one with New Zealand and Australia and folks in the different governments in the UK. So we were able to bring some of that international insight to Canada as well. And so it was pretty cool to be able to collaborate with them on the webinar and then on a project later and learn from our international colleagues, because no point in reinventing the wheel. Right. So yeah. Just quick snapshots of the team there, and that's all I have. So yeah.
What do you mean that's all you have? That's a lot.
Yeah. I didn't know if we were going to go through it all or not, but yeah, no, I'm happy I was able to share a lot of that.
There's a lot of information there. So, and I think that, again, being a practitioner as well as being in academia at the same time and being able to test in real world what you're doing is going to make all the difference in the world. And if you have the ears and eyes of the government, right? So we can stop putting a square peg in a round hole when it comes to offsite manufacturing, or just modern methods of manufacturing, as Mark Farmer would call it, right? Right? Wasn't it Innovate or Die? I can't remember. It was one of those that when it first started out.
The Farmer Report. The Farmer Report in 2016. Report. Yeah, I've had that in front of me too many times, I think.
I bet so. Why don't we, I mean, you answered pretty much all of my questions. There's quite a few comments here. Why don't we scroll through a few if you have a quick second and just see what everybody has to do. Let me go here. All right, this program just keeps finding the leaders and innovators in prefab and modular. Douglas Hayden. Hey, Doug, thank you, man. Appreciate always the comments that we receive from you. He says also, Canada seems on the cusp of an explosion in prefabricated modular construction, with a high focus from federal government and its initiatives around prefab housing and our polytechnic institutions like UNB. Well, there you go. There's some support for you. This one I know is Henry Mickelberg. Henry says, assuming part of your purpose is to develop strategies to prove the benefits of IC solutions by embedding your key metric methodologies into real-world projects, then transparently report the research to benefit to the wider industry, probably taxpayers who fund your research. It sounds incongruous, if that's how you say it. You're the higher ed guy. You can figure that one out. And hindering to sign NDAs, accredited testing. How do you manage this hurdle? Always Henry. Henry likes to be snarky.
No, that's a good point. So, I mean, to the funding aspect, when it is, there's a few different things. When it's fee for service and an organization comes and wants to do stuff, if it is, under an NDA or under specific confidentiality agreements, and they're funding it 100% of it, then we will abide by what they're asking for. when it comes into one like through NSERC here in Canada, there's the NSERC Alliance grant program where NSERC wants us as researchers to be able to publish the research that comes out of it. So the CAs that get agreed to, like if company ABC puts in $1, NSERC matches that with $1 or $2, depending on the size of the company. Within the confidentiality agreement, we would have to share a lot of that. Now, the stuff we're doing when it's like the roadmap that the National Research Council funded, which is the federal government, or some of the other work from the provincial or federal governments, almost all of that is going to go public in some way or another. Now, if we're asking businesses to give us data, related to the cost of their projects or productivity, insurance details, the price of things, what material they're using, different things like that, then we're mindful and just respectful of they're doing us a favor to move the industry forward by being an open book and sharing. We're not going to go and tell their competitors exactly what they're doing, but the outcomes of that. So there's one that we're doing that's gonna has support from our provincial government, has support from the modular industry that's building for the provincial government, and it has support from the federal government. Now that's to help with best practices for procuring modular and prefab housing, single family up to like mid-rise, let's say. And so, the outcomes of that are meant to go public and for folks to see it. And I don't know, Dave, if you pull it back up, but tied to the metrics, like we part of that is going to be identifying KPIs of how you competitively procure this, and identifying when a project does make sense to use volumetric modular or panelized or just, the traditional stick built stuff, right? So it is a good question. I should say too that while we have received a decent amount of public funding to support the center, we're still over 50% from the private sector, which is bodes well for us and showing that we are offering value to the industry.
Love it. Appreciate the question, Henry. Thank you for tuning in today. Greg Ugality, past chair of the National Association of Home Builders, top dog, as I like to call him. He said, great job, Dave and Brandon. Do you monitor how the 35% tariffs on lumber exports will affect off-site construction?
We currently don't have a project looking at that, but it's obviously top of mind. Now, some organizations like the Canadian Wood Council are looking at this as an opportunity where Canada, and I don't want to speak too far out of turn because this isn't really my area of expertise, but to my knowledge, we export a lot of our best lumber and keep the less stellar stuff for ourselves. And now, given that there's a huge housing crisis and there's an opportunity to really scale up and build more, what's the opportunity to kind of trade domestically? And I mean, in Canada, a lot of the provinces they're working so here in New Brunswick, I think 92% of our exports went to the U.S. Obviously being bordered with Maine and down through the Northeast, a lot of stuff went down there. And that's probably a big reason why some modular companies have been very successful for half a century, because they're able to go export to the States. But to answer your question, we haven't looked at it. A lot of people are looking at it through a glass half full of what does this mean to now build more domestically and keep that lumber for ourselves. But I'm speaking to some economists and stuff that are in that space soon, and it's definitely something that we want to look at. Yeah.
Brandon, did I miss anything? Is there anything you want to make sure we get out there to everybody that we didn't cover? I didn't ask.
Well, no, I don't think we missed anything. I was going to say, just going back to the hockey in Pittsburgh thing. So Sidney Crosby actually grew up like 2.5 hours down from me. So it's down the road from me. So that's probably our closest connection, Dave, is the fact that he's been the highlight of the Penguins for 2 decades now. And he's from Nova Scotia, which is our sister province here in New Brunswick.
Yeah, so we love Sydney.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm sure you do. He's a Canadian icon for sure. So yeah.
Yeah. Sydney. We had Mario Lemieux.
Yeah, he wasn't far from here either, just the other way towards Quebec.
Hey, listen, as an American, I'm always grateful that you're sending us your best lumber and your best hockey players. Keep up the good work.
Yes, thanks, Dave. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate you being on and bringing all this information to us. All right, everybody, listen. What day is it? It's Wednesday. You still got 2.5 days to keep building it better. So make sure you keep staying tuned. We'll be back on Monday. And again, we got to thank all of our supporting members like you're seeing going across the ticker there below. Without them, we can't do what we do each and every day, and that is bring the education and the value to all of you out there. Brandon, don't go anywhere. I'll come back to you after the outro. Listen, we have our own conference stage happening at Greenbuild in Los Angeles, November 4th through the 7th. That's right, Greenbuild in LA, where all the fires took place. There's a lot of rebuilding that needs to happen. Well, guess what? They came to us. They said, Dave, we're going to put you on a 20 by 40-foot stage in the middle of the trade show floor, and we want you to bring all of your offsite fanatics, friends, manufacturers, and institutions to our event, and that's with the U.S. Green Building Council, so we can educate and innovate and grow into a much bigger industry than what we are today. So if you're interested in joining us, make sure you reach out to us. Just send us a chat on LinkedIn or through YouTube or whatever you think the best way is, but we'd love to see you out there as well. All right, everybody, thank you. That was a great show. I appreciate everybody tuning in. My name is Dave Cooper. We are working on a better built world, and we're going to continue with that. We'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody. What an amazing show. Thank you to all of our sponsors for helping us to continue to bring all of these innovative conversations to all of you out there. Please visit them, see what they have to offer you. And as always, subscribe to the YouTube channel and ring that bell. It would mean the world to us. I'm Dave Cooper. Thanks for watching.